Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight after each of your busy days. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Brianna Jensen with Petros Family Wealth, and we're excited to be partnering with Jonathan from Breitenfeldt Group to bring you this Medicare focus session. We know Medicare can feel overwhelming, so our goal today is to give you a clear, straightforward information that helps you feel more confident about your options. So as we go through the presentation, we'd love to hear your questions. We do have everyone muted, but please go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we may answer some as we go, and others will circle back at the end to make sure everything gets addressed. But with that, we'll get started. And Jonathan, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Jonathan. I'm from the Breitenfeldt Group, like Brianna just said. We're a health insurance brokerage, primarily in Minnesota. We do have an office location in Wisconsin. And we're a company that primarily specializes in Medicare. So this is kind of where we focus most of our day in, day out business is primarily on Medicare. So today's kind of presentation is basically to get you that first initial kind of guide to what do you really need to understand about Medicare. It is a daunting topic, but it is nice to start with a nice clear foundation to kind of get through the confusing world of that. So I'm going to open up just a very simplistic kind of presentation through this, and we're just going to go through kind of the basics of Medicare, kind of the key things that you need to know. I will say that after this, you're probably going to have more questions than answers, but that's kind of the nature of Medicare. But hopefully you'll have the tools, the knowledge, and kind of some of the language around what you're going to need to know. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to dive in. And like Brianna said, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Let's do this. Make sure you guys can see my screen. Share that. You should be able to see Breitenfeldt Group up the top here, and then it will have a basic guide to Medicare. So with Medicare, the first question that we always like to answer is the big one is, do you have to enroll into Medicare when you turn 65? This is kind of the main question that everybody kind of asks us the minute they start talking about Medicare. And there are every single different possible combination of answers to this question. So the first thing I'd like to kind of mention is what Medicare is. Medicare is a benefit that is provided by the government to anybody that is over 65. So this is a health insurance benefit that is provided to anybody turning over 65. Some people are eligible before 65, but predominantly it's over 65. So when you turn 65, you start getting mailers and letters, and some of them are somewhat forceful about penalties and all these various things that if you don't do things just exactly correctly, you're going to have all these pains and hassles down the road. So what we'd like to answer is who needs to enroll into Medicare, and what are kind of the rules as you approach 65? What are the rules regarding Medicare? So the first kind of question to answer is who needs to enroll into Medicare? And there are basically, I like to put two main camps. There are those that probably should enroll into Medicare. Medicare is a voluntary benefit. You don't have to. But if you don't have the correct insurance, then you could actually have what they call late enrollment penalties. And those late enrollment penalties are lifetime penalties. If you don't have the correct insurance, you kind of would be better off enrolling into and subscribing to the Medicare program in order to avoid those late enrollment penalties. So there are a group of people that probably should, and we'll talk about them next. But the first group of people that we like to talk about is those that are actually able to delay Medicare. There are a whole group of people that are able to delay Medicare as long as they meet certain requirements. And the way I like to kind of illustrate this is a real life example. Is I met with this lady, and she was 92 years old. Her daughter was turning 62, so she was 92, and she was still working, and she loved her job. She was a professor of music, and basically her daughter was turning 65 and says, "I'm turning 65. you're gonna retire now with me. We're done. And this lady was like reluctantly, she was like, okay, I'm 92, I'm going to retire. And what happened is we helped her through the process of enrolling into Medicare. She decided to get into Medicare at 92, but she met certain requirements that she actually, when she enrolled into Medicare at 92, she didn't receive any late enrollment penalties. So she was actually able to delay Medicare 22 years, well, no, 27 years. My math is wrong. Yeah, 27 years, and didn't receive any late enrollment penalties. And so the first group of people is those that can delay Medicare. Obviously, mine is an extreme example, but their group of people that can delay Medicare are those that meet three requirements. And the requirements are you are on an active group insurance health policy that is more than 20 people and it is deemed Medicare creditable. So you might be approaching 65 and you say, well, Jonathan, I've met with my financial planner, I've met with my accountants, met with all different kinds of things. I want to work until 67 or 70 or 92, like this lady. This is the only person I've ever met. But if you ever have that kind of goal in mind of when you want to work to past 65 and you say, I have great insurance, I don't want to give it up. Do I have to go on to Medicare? The answer is depends, but more than likely, as long as you meet these requirements, that you are on an active group insurance policy and it is Medicare creditable. So it meets the requirements for the Part B penalty to be waived and Medicare creditable, as you can see on this list. On number two, it waives the prescription drug penalty. So you have to meet those two requirements. Normally, people ask me at this point, will say, well, Jonathan, I'm 65 and I'm retired, but I'm actually on my spouse's or my partner's work insurance. They're 63. They're still working until 65. Does that count? Yes, it absolutely does. As long as they are actively employed and it's on a large group policy and it's deemed Medicare creditable, you can waive that penalty if you decide to delay that Medicare as long as you're still on that sponsored group plan. So you doesn't have to be your policy. You just have to be enrolled into that active group policy. So whether it's your policy or your spouse's policy. So that's kind of the first thing is, do you have to enroll into Medicare? It all depends on your situation. There are a group of people like you might be thinking that actually can delay Medicare, and we have lots of clients that do this. They go, well, I have all these plans and all these benchmarks that I want to hit as far as finances, as far as retirement goals, all these things. Can I delay my Medicare and not have those late enrollment penalties? The big thing is these two factors and these two penalties. So the two penalties are Part B and Part D. If you meet those two requirements, you don't have those penalties. So that's the one group of people. And we help people, kind of ascertain how that, if those two things, especially Medicare credibility, is true. But the easiest way to find the answer to that is just to call your insurance policy and say, I'm turning 65. Is this deemed Medicare creditable? And creditability just is kind of a catch-all term for does it meet the drug coverage requirements of Medicare for someone over 65? That's the simple answer to that. Then the next group of people is basically everybody else, I would say. Everybody else more than likely is going to need to enroll into some part of Medicare. So what are those groups of people in the second category? The second category is kind of an adjacent kind of category to the work insurance. You might have been 63, decided to retire early, which is awesome. Your work said, hey, we're going to give you, 18 months worth of COBRA, which is work insurance. It's just not subsidized by the employer anymore. So you get to pay the full premium. You get to keep the same insurance. But now you're approaching 65, you're on a COBRA policy. And you might say, well, it's my same work insurance. I can keep delaying it. I just retired at 64 and I still have 6 months worth of Cobra left. I'd like to keep going on my Cobra. I like my Cobra for whatever reason. It's usually really expensive, so you probably would like to switch, but let's say whatever reason you want to. The big thing about that is missing from Cobra is that active employment piece, right? It's not actively employed because Cobra is for non-employees for that 18-month period. Or let's just say you are on one of the state programs in Minnesota, where we're from. It's called MNsure. It's the under 65 insurance provided by the state program. Other states have or whatever programs. It's the Affordable Care Act kind of programs that everybody is enrolled into under 65. Those plans are not Medicare creditable, so you're going to want to switch over to Medicare when you are 65. Then there are groups like I use another example of my uncle actually. He's 64 and he decided to retire at 64, but he doesn't want to pay the high premiums for the state-run program or Cobra. So he's just going to wrap himself in bubble wrap for a year. So he doesn't have any insurance. Not advised, but that's what he's chosen to do. But when he turns 65 in next year, he's going to need to enroll into Medicare to avoid that late enrollment penalty because he doesn't have any kind of insurance. So really the two groups of people that you kind of want to figure out where you land is, do you meet the requirements to delay Medicare, or do you need to enroll into Medicare? Now, there are groups in the middle as well. I'll address them just very briefly. And these are going to be retiree plans. So maybe you're not on a COBRA plan, but you're on a retiree plan that's sponsored by your former employer. These plans, generally speaking, are going to change their benefits once someone becomes Medicare eligible. So you're probably going to enroll into some part of Medicare, but that's an answer we really can't answer. That's going to be a question that you would want to talk to your benefit coordinator about. The other group of people is anybody that's a veteran. I don't know if anybody on the call has any kind of VA benefits or are veterans, but veterans have extra benefits depending on what tier level they land. And they're going to have to enroll into certain parts of Medicare and actually can delay some parts of Medicare. For the most part, a lot of the VA beneficiaries that we work for don't need to have a Part D prescription drug plan because the VA provides creditable drug coverage. So the nice thing is they get that through the VA. So there's all these layers. So it's overly simplistic to say delay and take, and there are all these layers in between. But that's going to be the first thing that we always like to ask. Like I talk to people, all the time, and that's the first thing I ask is, where are you as far as your insurance right now? What are your retirement goals? If you are going to delay Medicare, and then we can go from there, start building up the foundations as far as that. So that's kind of the first categories. Who needs to enroll into Medicare? Now that you've kind of probably figured out where you land on that scale, the next question is then going to be, when do I enroll into Medicare? So going back to the two groups of people, you might say, well, Jonathan, I am on Cobra. I am on a state-run program. I have no insurance. I'm in this category of people that I know I need to enroll into Medicare. What are the enrollment windows that I need to pay attention to? And it's a pretty straightforward window to kind of be aware of. It's called your initial enrollment period, as you can see right here. The initial enrollment period for Medicare is a 7-month window that surrounds your 65th birth month. And so what that means is, let's just say you turn 65 in December 14th. Everybody's Medicare eligibility starts the first day of your 65th birth month. So it doesn't matter if you're born on the 2nd or the 31st of December, your eligibility for Medicare is your 65th birth month, the first day of the year. Now, if you're anything like my wife and her birthday's on the first of the month, then your Medicare eligibility actually starts 1 month early. So it's just a little weird rule that Medicare has. So that's another little thing to kind of write down. So if you say, well, Jonathan, I'm actually December 1st, your Medicare eligibility will then start November 1st. So just a little thing to keep in mind. Regardless, you have a 7-month window to enroll. So December 1st, let's just say again, you're turning 65 December 14th. So December 1st is that first day of eligibility. 3 months before would be September, October, November, that you can start the enrollment process. If you enroll in the 3 months before you turn 65 or the 65th birth month, your Medicare is going to start December 1st. Now, the government gives you an extra 4 months in case life happens, things happen, to enroll after your 65th birth month to avoid those penalties. So if you enroll in December, your Medicare will stop delayed 1 month. So you will start January 1st. If you enroll in January, it will start February 1st, February, March, and then April 1st. This comes in handy a lot of the time, especially if your birthday is at the end of the month, I mean, the end of the year. um, is because sometimes we meet a lot of clients that are saying, well, Jonathan, I would like to kind of delay my Medicare a little bit because maybe I'm expecting a bonus, or maybe my work would like me to work just an extra couple of months to, kind of close out the year at a kind of nice seamless period. Um, can I kind of move those numbers of when I go onto Medicare as far as those dates? And you absolutely can. So I have lots of clients, especially in the December category of birth dates, that say, well, if I work to the end of the year, that's great, but then I get a nice bonus for working through the end of the year. It gets paid out in March. So can I keep working till March? Yeah. Then all you're going to have to do is then enroll into Medicare starting in March, if your birthday's in December, and it will start April 1st. So you just kind of delay it ever so slightly. So there are some kind of things that you can do to kind of do that. But for the most part, most people will enroll the 3 months before, and it will start the month of. Now, as far as enrolling is concerned, it's fairly simple. You just go to ssa.gov, so the Social Security Administration. And if you have a My Social Security account, you basically log into that. That's where you can see your Social Security benefits. And there's a nice little tab up the top that says sign up for Medicare. You just go to that tab. As long as you have your basic information like your date of birth and all of those kinds of things, you go onto the application. It should take you about 15 to 20 minutes. A very, very simple application. Um, and you just basically complete it online, press submit, and it goes to them, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to process. And again, like I said, if you enroll 3 months before, it starts the month of your 65th birth month, so that first day. So that's how people will do it. Now, there is this little red asterisk over here, collecting Social Security benefits. So maybe you are one of those people that have retired early before 65, and you decided that for whatever reason it was the right time to start collecting your Social Security benefits. And that was great. So you're getting those extra benefits there. The nice thing about collecting Social Security benefits is that you're automatically enrolled into Medicare when you turn 65. So the way this works is about 3 to 4 months before your 65th birth month, you'll actually get your Medicare card in the mail automatically. So the nice thing is, around again with the December example, around end of August, early September, you'll get a little card from, yeah, from Medicare, and they'll say, "Here's your red, white, and blue Medicare benefit card." And it's not going to be effective September, October, November. The card's going to say your Medicare starts December 1st. But the nice thing is you're automatically enrolled. One thing I always like to kind of point out at this point, just because it's maybe selfish of me because I've dealt with it so much, is that at this point in time, around end of August, early September, you're going to want to throw away every piece of mail that regards Medicare you've ever wanted to, because there's so much mailing that comes into your mailbox around that time because everybody knows you're turning 65. So there's a lot of information. So I have more than probably 50% of my clients. They'll call me up and I'm like, "Great, you got your Medicare card, you're collecting Social Security." And they'll go, I didn't get it." And I'm like, "Have you been throwing away your Medicare information?" They're like, "Yeah, I was sick and tired of it." So lots and lots and lots of people just get sick and tired of it and they throw away accidentally their Medicare card. So my caution would be about 3.5 to 4 months before you turn 65, if you're collecting Social Security benefits, just to open every piece of mail. I know it's a tedious process, but it's more tedious than to have to recontact Social Security and then having to reissue your Medicare card. So that would just be my, just kind of a little aside kind of hint to do that. So that's going to be for anybody that needs to go onto Medicare, your initial enrollment period. The other enrollment period is for those that have decided to delay Medicare. So going back to that person that was 92 years old, they delayed Medicare until they turned 92. They needed to enroll within a 3-month window before their employer coverage ended. This is called their special enrollment period based on a life-changing event. So losing employer coverage, retirement triggers a Medicare enrollment period called your special enrollment period. And you have 3 months to get your paperwork together and enroll into a Medicare. So that's going to be this category of people that, you've decided that you at 65 you're going to delay Medicare and you'd like to go onto Medicare at 67 instead. Great. Whatever that retirement date, it ends, December 31st, 2027. That's when you want to do. Then October in 2026 is when you're going to want to start enrolling into Medicare. The only difference between the initial enrollment period sign up and the special enrollment period sign up is because the special enrollment period sign up is after 65, the government's going to want to penalize you. So you need to get together some paperwork from your employer. You actually have a form from the Social Security Administration that you give to your employer to fill out that basically vouches for you and says, hey, since turning 65, you have had that group insurance policy, and that way you have that late enrollment Part B penalty waived. So that's going to be the only thing that's going to be difference between enrolling is do you have that extra paperwork basically to waive that penalty? And it's a pretty straightforward, it's a one-page document. It's not a long, tax kind of thing. It's just a very simple document that they just need to vouch for you to say you've had that work insurance if you have decided to delay Medicare. So who needs to enroll into Medicare? Some can delay, some need to go onto it. When do you enroll into Medicare? Initial enrollment period, special enrollment period, those are going to be your enrollment windows. Uh, Obviously, there are some nuances within that. Some people qualify for other reasons like moving and other things like that, but those are going to be your main two ones that you want to kind of focus on. So that would be the main ones that I would focus on. But then, really, the meat and potatoes of today's presentation is what is Medicare? So the big thing is we've talked about enrolling into Medicare, delaying Medicare, what the benefit of Medicare, but what actually is Medicare? And what we like to kind of say is Medicare is a two-piece puzzle. And the two pieces is the federal program and then the private program. Okay, so the first part of Medicare is the first puzzle piece that you want to kind of talk about is original Medicare. And so this is the slide right here. Original Medicare is broken down into two parts. It's Medicare Part A, hospital, Medicare Part B, medical. Medicare Part A hospital, the benefit coverage covers any inpatient hospital care, skilled nursing facility, hospice, home health services, so anything on an inpatient basis. This is what Part A covers. So the nice thing about Part A is it's pretty easy to understand. And then Part B is medical. This is everything on an outpatient basis. So outpatient care, doctor's visits, durable medical equipment, and many preventative services. So that's the kind of the meat and potatoes of Medicare. What the government provides you is Medicare Part A and B. So this is what you would sign up for when you enroll into Medicare within that initial enrollment period, that special enrollment period. And this is the card that you'll get if you're collecting Social Security. Your card's going to say Medicare Part A, hospital, Medicare Part B, medical. On those cards, and it will say when it starts. So this is the original part of Medicare. So that's kind of the first piece of the puzzle. Now, Medicare Part A, the nice thing about Part A is it costs you nothing. It's a $0 monthly premium. And this is if you've worked longer than 10 years or what they call 40 quarters. So if you've done that, which most of us have, you basically have a $0 premium for Medicare Part A. So that's a nice kind of benefit. I always like to point out it's not free. You've paid for it through your Medicare taxes your entire working life. So it's not a free premium. It's just a now you don't have to pay for it because you paid for it up front. So that's kind of what Part A costs you now. So that's a nice benefit. But at this point is pretty much where the $0 cost for Medicare pretty much ends. Medicare Part A costs you nothing for premium, but it does have a deductible that you need to pay whenever you use the benefit. So whenever you go to an inpatient hospital care or any one of those listed Part A benefits, the first line item on your bill is going to be a deductible of just under $1,700. It's 1676, I believe, this year. So Medicare Part A has this $1,700 deductible. This deductible, however, is not a yearly deductible. As you can see here, it is a what they call a benefit period deductible. And what that means is that every 60 days that you are out of the hospital, so you've been in the hospital for 5 days, day six you leave, and then 61 days later you are readmitted into the hospital, you're going to have to repay that deductible. So the deductible for Part A does reset after a benefit period is reset. So it is what it is. After, if you unfortunately are hospitalized multiple times in a year, you could see quite a few bills kind of adding up. The benefit also does have a limit to how long the benefit lasts. So after 60 days, then you'll start seeing copays, and after 90 days, then you see higher copays up to a lifetime benefit. So there are some limitations to this benefit overall, but we're not going to go too deep into that. Now, Medicare Part A is that. Medicare Part B is the medical part of Medicare. And Medicare Part B, the premium is going to be 185. So this is the baseline cost of Medicare Part B. So this is why a lot of people don't enroll into Medicare if they're delaying Medicare because there's a premium attached to the Medicare Part B. So most people will pay 185, and this is based on your income. So this is where a lot of people really find this to be a little bit of a challenge, just especially when you're starting to talk about retirement and all of your various things is Part B premium is a 185, but that's only if your income is below $106,000 single filing or $212,000 joint filing. And this is looking back 2 years. So for 2025, the premium is based on your 2023 modified adjusted gross income. If you are in a higher income bracket from 2023, then you're going to expect to see a higher Part B premium. And this is called IRMA. IRMA is called the income related monthly adjusted amount. So there are the thresholds. I'm sure I said that probably too fast. So there you can kind of see the numbers with that baseline amount. So I'll just wait here in case someone's writing it down. And then what the most people will ask at this point is like, well, Jonathan, I am in the higher bracket, or I expect to be, or whatever your situation is. There is this nifty chart. It's a little squished, but as you can see, once you are above that baseline threshold of 185, there are basically different tier levels that go up depending on where you are. So your Part B premium could see an increase of $74 to $259 and so on and so forth. Um, the thing about IRMA is it affects your Part B premium and it affects your Part D premium. What that means is whenever you enroll into a drug plan, which we'll talk about soon, you're actually going to get a surcharge on that as well. So there are two IRMA charges. Now, as far as IRMA is concerned, there are ways to navigate IRMA, especially if you've delayed retirement or you've had some sort of um, life-changing event. So say you are retiring now at 67 and 2 years ago you had a higher income, you can actually appeal IRMA to look at projected income with the government, but you do need to qualify through a life-changing event like work stoppage or retirement, or there are other events like divorce or marriage, so in order to kind of change that. But the most common one that we run across is retirement. So that's another thing where you're saying, well, I'm going to retire at 67. I think I'm going to be earning, $300,000. I'm going to retire in 2 years' time. How is IRMA going to play into it? There is ways to kind of navigate that. Obviously, that's directly with the Social Security Administration, but there are forms and there's processes to kind of navigate that. So this would be a big topic, I think, for a lot of people to, if that applies to you, definitely a point to kind of make note for Medicare, because you will see a surcharge. Um, Now, a lot of people will ask me at this point, well, Jonathan, what are the choices in regards to my Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B benefit? Do I have like I'm paying 185 for it, but can I get, X and X benefit, and what benefits can I delay or add. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, original Medicare is standardized across the United States. There is no choice involved. You either enrolled into it or you're not enrolled into it. So whether you're down in Texas or Florida or California or Minnesota or Wisconsin, Medicare Part A and B is standardized. So the premium and the benefit are exactly the same, obviously with the exception of that IRMA charge. So what is the benefit of Medicare Part B or medical benefit under the original Medicare? It has an annual deductible of $257 a year, so a much better yearly deductible that you need to pay. And then the problem with that is once you've met that yearly deductible of 257, you're going to have to pay 20% coinsurance of all of your medical expenses. So the benefit of Part B is 80% coverage. So this is a doctor visit, 80% coverage. You pay 20%, surgery, 80%, 20%. So what I always like to point out is it is nice in the sense of, you go to a doctor visit, 80% coverage, 20%. So, $200 bill, you paying a $40 co-insurance. That's not a big deal, but that does kind of start to not be so ideal when you start talking about the higher costs of medical expenses, like a surgery, $100,000 surgery. Now we're looking at $20,000 in co-pays, and that leads us really to the next puzzle piece of Medicare. The next puzzle piece of Medicare is what's missing from Medicare Part A and B. And what's missing out of Medicare Part A and B is an out-of-pocket maximum. So there is no out-of-pocket maximum on the costs and that you would incur under Medicare A and B. And one thing that's missing out of Medicare Part A and B, as we've kind of touched on, is that there's no prescription drug coverage. So if you have any kind of prescription needs, and we've talked about if you don't have the right prescription drug coverage, you get a penalty. So you're needing to enroll into some sort of drug coverage, but the Medicare Part A and B benefit do not have prescription drug coverage included. So that is where the additional benefits. This is the second puzzle piece. So the first puzzle piece is A and B, original Medicare, and then the second puzzle piece is going to be the C and D option of Medicare, where private insurance companies come in and they offer products in your area. So wherever you are, and based on your region, based on where you're living, they'll add these additional benefits to provide you a max out-of-pocket limit for your medical expenses and hospital expenses and drug coverage. Usually some of these plans will also, depending on which plan you come with, will also add additional things like health programs and dental programs, but it all depends on which policy. But that's going to be the private insurance companies adding this additional benefit. And that's what kind of we're going to discuss here next. So the first benefit is A and B, standardized, everybody gets the same. And then where you get the additional benefit with these private insurance company, that's where it gets really a lot more daunting because every company has different benefits and all different levels. So that's what we're going to discuss here next. But something that I just skipped over really quickly is at this point, lots of people say, well, Jonathan, I am going to delay my Medicare, until I turn 67 or 70. But, I just saw that Part A doesn't cost me anything. Why don't I just enroll into Part A at least? Absolutely. A lot of people, when they decide to delay Medicare, if they want to work past 65 or have a spouse or a partner working past 65, will enroll into Medicare Part A at the bare minimum. It's not a requirement, but some people will do it. It's just an optional and added benefit to a hospitalization benefit within your work insurance. Usually it doesn't really kick in very, very much, but it's nice to get your Medicare number and you have Medicare Part A, your foot's in the door. So that is something that a lot of people will do. The reason why I bring it up is if you have a health savings account, so you have a work insurance policy that you are sponsored on, that is part of a high deductible plan that you are making tax-free contributions to a health savings account. If you enroll into Part A, you can no longer make these contributions. So It is it is advised from us at least, that if you are going to continue with that health savings contributions, do not enroll into Part A because you will have a 6% penalty for any contributions over and above what you paid if you have Medicare Part A. So that is something that we talk about. As far as here planning for retirement, I won't go too much into the weeds of it, but it is something you want to be aware of. If you are deciding to delay Medicare and you do have an HSA account, um, and you plan to delay Medicare, Medicare Part A backdates 6 months from when you apply for it in the future. So there is a little bit of planning involved, as to when you need to enroll into Medicare Part A, because you would say, well, I'm going to say, just like Jonathan said, I have 3 months before I enroll in October. It starts January. Great, everything. The problem is that Part A backdates. So it does cause some issues. So if that is a concern with the health savings account, I'm not going to stick too much onto it. Just be aware of that. So that would be something just to be aware of. So with that being said, the next puzzle piece is the additional insurance, provided by private insurance companies. And I don't know, I know there might be some people from not Minnesota here, so I don't know. Uh, I'm only licensed in Minnesota, but I know for a fact that there are basically two main programs that are true of any state that you're living in. And basically, there are two programs that you get to choose from, in order to supplement your original Medicare, your Medicare A and B. And the two programs that you can choose from is what they call Medicare Advantage programs or Medicare Supplement programs, or another name for these are called Medigap policies. So this would be a nice place where I like to do, as I always do, A and B on a piece of paper. I block it off and then I do a line and I go Medicare Advantage, Medicare, Medigap policies. So these are the two kind of like forks in the roads of how you want to add that additional insurance. So that's what you're going to be able to choose from. And again, this is state specific, and there are things, but there are some general rules that are true of both programs. So that's what I'm going to kind of end this presentation today with, is kind of the broad strokes of what you need to understand about the two programs. And the first program, um, like we said, the supplemental plans are in addition to A and B. They vary from state and county, and the selections are individual and family. So another thing that is nice to be aware of is you might have a spouse who both are turning 65 at around the same time, or maybe, delayed, and but regardless going on to Medicare at the same time. You don't need to choose the same plans. Everybody has their own specific needs, as far as their plans. So the first option that you get to choose, the first route that some person that goes onto Medicare gets to choose, is what they call a Medigap policy or a Medicare supplement. The Medigap or the Medicare supplements are really easy to understand in my mind, because it's in the name. They're called supplements and they're kind of nicknamed Medigaps because they do one thing and one thing very well. They cover the gaps left by original Medicare. So that Medicare Part A deductible, that Medicare Part B 20% that you would have to pay if you had any kind of outpatient procedure. With the highest level of Medigap policies across the United States, the highest level of Medigaps, you're basically not going to see any copays because the Medigap policy will pay as a secondary payer to the Medigap. And outside of a $257 yearly deductible, which you can't get away with getting that covered, you basically don't see any bills. So Medigap policies are really great because the main feature of them is you have that flexibility to, have a lot of procedures done and you're not going to really see any bills. The other benefit of going with a Medigap policy is that you can go to any provider that accepts Medicare nationwide. There's no network. So a lot of people that we talk to in Minnesota, they love going down to like Texas and Florida and Arizona during the winter. I don't know why, but yeah, they've lived in Minnesota all their lives. They want to be warm, so they go, hey, we're going to start snowbirding, and they want to have that flexibility. They don't want to deal with networks. They don't want to deal with any kind of restrictions. So these Medigap policies are really great for them because we say, as long as your doctor accepts Medicare, you basically have access to whatever kind of care you'd need. So it's a really nice program. The downside to a Medigap policy on average, especially here in Minnesota, it's a little different in, some of the other states, but in Minnesota specifically, they tend to have the higher premiums. Anywhere in Minnesota, they can be upwards of $300, and other states I've seen them, closer to $200. But generally speaking, on top of that Part B premium, you're adding that additional, higher premium. So I would say most people on Medigap policies nowadays are spending anywhere between, $400 to $500 a month, but no network, no copays. It's a pretty nice thing. There's little to no out-of-pocket costs as well, so that's really nice. It also is something, a feature of a lot of Medigaps, and again, this is specifically in Minnesota. I can't speak too much to other states, but a lot of the states will have what they call a guaranteed issue window, that if you don't accept the Medigap policies right away, you'll be asked health history questions and possibly denied access to them in the future. So if you are in Minnesota, it is a big decision to make because you have to kind of choose to, go on it right away, or you could ask those health histories. So that would be something to kind of explore. But once you're in them, they're guaranteed renewable. So basically, they can never kick you off as long as you pay the premium. So you have some really excellent coverage if you go with it. So no copay, no network. The downside with the Medigap policies, they only cover what Medicare A and B covers. We've already said that A and B does not cover prescriptions. So you need to add a different prescription drug plan and what we call a standalone drug plan on top of your Medigap policy. So I like to kind of view Medigap policy, that route of going with Medicare supplemental options, as kind of more of an a la carte way of doing it, because you have A and B, you have your Medigap, and you have a separate Part D drug policy. Drug policies, depending on what you need, can range from anywhere from $5 to $150. So if you're on a basic statin or a blood pressure medication, you're probably on the lower end of the spectrum. And then if you're on a higher prescription, say an Ozempic or one of those brand name drugs you see on TV, you're probably going to need to have a drug plan that's going to cost a little bit more and monthly premium in order to get richer benefits. So that's how these drug plans work. And with drug plans, you can change them yearly during October 15th through December 7th, which is the open enrollment period. We're coming up on it here in just a little bit, where everybody does the big Medicare shuffle, where they tell us, what kind of prescriptions they're on, how things have changed. And so if they're on a Medigap policy, we really don't touch the Medigap, but we do help them with their drug coverage. The other downside, I would say, with going with a Medigap policy is that with a Medigap policy, it only covers what Medicare covers. And Medicare considers annual physicals, routine eye exams, routine hearing exams, and any kind of dental as not medically necessary. So Medicare does not cover these services. So if you needed dental, you would need to get a separate dental plan. So again, it's more of an a la carte route. Vision would need to be a separate policy as well if you wanted to have any kind of eyewear allowance or any kind of routine eye coverage. So there are some limitations. Instead of an annual physical, people on a Medigap policy will do what they call a wellness check. So you kind of just have to play by the rules, but there are certain things and certain limitations with going with a Medigap. So there are higher premiums, no copays, no network, but there are different ways you have to kind of add additional policies to round out your insurance. Then the next option that you have, the other option outside of Medigap and the separate Part D drug, is going to be what they call the Advantage programs. And these are called the Part C of Medicare. And the best way I can describe Part C is Part C basically takes all the benefits of A and B and D and bundles them together. And with that bundling, they add additional benefits as well. So it's a kind of a restructuring of Medicare A and B and D under one policy. So that's where you see right over here, all in one. So the kind of the main characteristics of an Advantage plan is one policy under one benefit, all your benefits under one policy is what I'm trying to say. Generally speaking, these plans are going to have lower premiums depending on where you are and depending on what kind of level of coverage you want. You can get a plan as low as zero all the way up to about $200, but most people I meet with, if they go with an Advantage plan, land somewhere between $50 to $100 a month. So a much lower monthly premium on top of that Part B premium, but it's a yeah, so a much lower premium, and you're getting all of these benefits included. So your A and B benefit, your hospital medical benefit, and your drug bundled. And usually you're going to have some sort of dental, vision, and hearing benefit included as well. So that's kind of why they call them Advantage plans, is they have these additional benefits. The trade-off for the lower premium and all of these benefits bundled is going to be that you're going to have to subscribe to a network and you're going to see copays. So again, the copays are on a sliding scale. $0, you're going to see higher copays. $100, you're going to see lower copays, and it all depends on which plan you go with. Um, but that is going to be, and then depending on which company you go with, whatever company is out there, you're going to have to go within their network. So Advantage plans, lower premium, copays network, but bundled all together. And there are no health history questions. You can change these plans yearly, and there's no issue. October 15th through December 7th. So let's say this year you start off at a $50 Advantage plan, and next year you want to go up in coverage because of, for whatever reason, maybe having some sort of surgery, you just want to have a little bit more security, you can go to $150 Advantage plan or a different company. And as long as you do it during that open enrollment, you can make that switch. Um, and that's really where the kind of the broker part of Medicare comes in. That's where my company comes in, is we help you with the additional part, So, we say, do you want to go with Medigap? Do you want to go with Advantage? Do you want to go, Medigap and drug plans? And we help you navigate which of those going to be those options. And that's what a broker does, is trying to help you through that. We're independent, so in Minnesota at least, we're licensed with all the major carriers, so we help people kind of navigate that. But what I don't know again if there's anybody else from other states, but we're licensed in all of the Minnesotas and the Dakotas and Wisconsins, but we're also in the Floridas and Texas and Arizonas, as well. So we're also licensed there to help people find the best policies as well. So that's the basics of Medicare. That's my company. That's me right over there. But yeah, that's Medicare. If you ever want to work with us, this is who we are. We have multiple places throughout the metro. So that was a lot of talking. Are there any questions? I'm sorry if you didn't, Brianna.
No, that was
I'm gonna
perfect. Thank
stop the
you so
share and
much for
then
that detailed
yeah,
presentation and all the
sure.
examples. That was great. We do have a couple questions. The first one being, do you know the form number of the document needed if you are past 65, have been working, and need to prove that you've been on group insurance?
The form that you'll need.
That
Yeah, it's the
form number.
L564 form.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
L564.
Is that something you upload to your Social Security account as well?
Yes. So let's just say, as an example, let's just say you don't have an HSA account. So when you turn 65, you signed up for Part A. Great. That's awesome. Now you're turning 67, you're deciding to retire, and you are then needing to prove to the government that you had that employer coverage. So you go online to ssa.gov or you contact a broker like us. We have these forms. And you basically fill out the first part, Section A of the L564 employer verification form. And then you hand the form over to your employer. They fill out Section B, sign it. Then you go onto ssa.gov, you log into your account. And then on the application, if you already have Part A, it says, do you wish to sign up for Part B only? You log in and then you basically fill in the application like you would any other application. And then there's an upload thing that says upload your employer verification L564 form. Now, there is a place right above that, just as an FYI, where it says just manually enter the information about your employer. That's great, and you have to do that, but it is not a substitute for the actual form that is signed. They kind of want you to do double duty. So make sure that that form is uploaded, because a lot of people say, well, I filled it in myself. And it's like, no, they need that signature from an HR or director or, manager. Hopefully that was clear enough.
Yeah, that was perfect. And then someone else asked, they're turning
Mhm.
65 in June, receiving spousal benefits. Will they automatically receive that Medicare card?
Any Social Security benefits, whether it's yours or your own, or your spouse's, or through disability, anybody that's collecting Social Security benefits gets automatically enrolled. So yeah, so for June it would be what, March, April, May. Yeah, so I would say the end of February, early March, open every piece of mail, and like I said, it's going to be Health and Human Services. It's going to be a real nondescript letter. You're gonna think it's just trash, and you in there's that red, white, and blue card that's worth its weight in gold. Don't throw it away.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. No other questions are coming through, but I just want to make sure if any other questions come up. Oh, we have one more that came up. How does a VEBA account compare to an HSA? And is that impacted with Medicare Part A?
Like a Viva account. Yeah, that it's only the HSA. Yeah, so if you have an FSA or some sort of HRA, health reimbursement program, or anything like those are not usually going to be affected.
Okay.
I would always double check, but for I would say I've never come across a VEBA or a HRA or any of those accounts that have impacted the Part A. It's only HSA because you have HRAs and that doesn't do anything.
Another question for you was which office do you work out of?
I kind of float around. So I'm like out of our Edina office and Maple Grove office. Because I'm on kind of the business development side of things, I kind of bounce around. But I was primarily in Maple Grove in Minnesota, primarily for the last 5 years. So just got this new, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, we're super glad you joined us today. Thank you so much, and thanks for being patient with my internet here.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
if any other questions do come up, for those watching, please reach out and we'd be happy to address them and further discuss your personal situation. So, on behalf of Petros Family Wealth and Breitenfeldt Group, we appreciate your time and look forward to supporting you in your planning.